So there's a law called Amara's Law, and this was coined by Roy Amara, which is a Stanford research um, uh, kind of a futurist. He was a technologist in back in the 70s and I believe the 80s at the Stanford Research Center. And in the law states that we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run, but underestimate the effect in the long run. And he came up with this law looking at how technology products or services or developments kind of enter the market and what happens in terms of the a consumer's perspective or a culture's perspective on that technology. And this graph basically shows that the the purple line is basically the trajectory of that technology and how humans think about it. Okay. And then the kind of the teal line is how technological productivity develops. So usually in the beginning, what this is showing is that a technology comes out and everybody thinks, oh my gosh, this is going to change the world. But it actually doesn't help in the beginning. There's a lot of hype. There's probably a lot of products and services that get kicked off that end up being not useful, or it's, kind of clunky. And then over time, what happens is there is a loss of um, interest in the technology, but then the technology kind of kicks off and it begins to develop and integrate into other systems, into our communities and our cultures and how we work. And it becomes very, very productive. And we underestimate its value in the long term. That's what that line is showing. So here's another example of how that works. So on the vertical axis, we've got expectations. These are our expectations of technology. On the horizontal axis, we have time. Okay. So in the beginning, our expectations of technology go really, really high, really quick. And then we hit a peak of inflated expectations. And I think that we're probably just on the downside of that with AI. Over the last year, as ChatGPT set the market and people kind of like their minds have blown, uh, introduced to that technology, there's been all sorts of crazy things that people are suggesting. I mean, I've heard people talking about how we're going to upload our brains into the cloud and all this kind of weird stuff, right? Using this technology, or that AI is going to take over, it's going to destroy the world kind of thing. And I think we've kind of come on the downslope of that inflated expectations or the inflated, I guess, optics of what AI will do. And then what happens is it kind of tails off and we get to a trough of disillusionment, which is where I was like, oh, well, maybe this technology really isn't that important. And then we go through a slope of enlightenment, which is like, oh, maybe it will. And then we get to a plateau of productivity. This is a typical slope with the introduction of a new piece of technology. And I definitely think that we've been I'm super robust and proponent of what AI will do. I'm a big believer in it. I think it's going to be incredibly useful. Um, but I think that it's definitely overhyped. It has been over the last at least couple of years. And I think we're on the downward slope of this peak of inflated expectations. Okay. So that's just a little bit of a sense of kind of where we might think we're at with this new technology. For those of you who this is totally new, I recently wrote an ebook, and you can download it there if you'd like it. It's an ebook that talks about some of the aspects of what we talk about tonight, but it might be great to like take a look at it, or if there's somebody on your team that is interested in learning more about AI and its influence on dentistry, it's a great ebook. If you just shoot that QR code and fill out the form, it'll give you the ebook. I also wrote another ebook recently, just came out last week with Anne Marie De Palma, exploring artificial intelligence. And this is a history of AI, kind of how it's developed over time and where it's beginning to influence dentistry. So this is more of a historical kind of aspect, more broad in terms of its coverage. But that's another great ebook if you're interested in learning about AI, the history of AI, and how it's influencing medicine. Let me tell you a quick story about that'll help set the stage for this topic. So this young lady on the left, that's my sister, and her husband and her four kids. And they live in France, or they lived in France for about 20 years. And they had a really, really hard time kind of getting ahead, um, moving up in the job network out there in France. I don't know if you know much about France, but it's a kind of a labor state. It's hard to get a job, but once you get a job, it's easy to keep it. It's not a place where you would go to start a business because the taxes are so high. And it makes it difficult for people to really kind of like, you know, move ahead and save money and whatnot. And so they had a really difficult time for a couple decades. They never bought a home. They always wanted to get a home. And it's not because they don't work hard. It's not because they're not sharp. She's freaking brilliant. Her husband speaks 6 languages. They work hard. They're super, super sharp. She's really, really creative. Just never could find anything in France. And a few years ago, I hired her to work for my social practice as a copywriter. And things started to kind of take off. She's a phenomenal writer. She's super, super creative. And she'd been working with us for a couple of years. And then in November of 2022, ChatGPT came out. Now we were right in a spot at our company because we do a lot of copywriting. We do SEO, we build websites, so we got a copywriting team. And we were kind of at the point where we might need to hire a copywriter. And a good copywriter is not cheap. It's a significant labor expense. So we were looking at hiring another copywriter, and then ChatGPT came out, and I started playing around with ChatGPT. I'm like, man, we don't need to hire another copywriter. We need to learn how to use AI to help us write copy better and more efficient, streamlined. So I got really excited about it, and I called her and I showed it to her, and she immediately freaked out. Um, she basically thought I'm losing my job. That's the first thing that came to her mind. I'm afraid of, she's finally, they bought a home, right? She started working here. They bought a home. They started getting their kids in tons of activities and started saving some money and stuff. And so she kind of freaked out, thinking that she was going to lose her job to AI. I said, no, 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 that's not what's going on here. That's nobody's losing their job. But what we'll be able to do though is retain our employees, pay them better, and produce 2, 3, 4 times as much copy, which is what ended up happening. So we trained our copywriters to start leveraging AI to help write copy. It streamlined the process. The copywriting was actually better, and we were good to go, right? Nobody lost their jobs. Well, I mentioned that because some of the technology that AI, I should say, some of the tasks that AI is able to do effortlessly is kind of a threat to a lot of industries. And in the dental industry, I'll show you some technologies here that might frighten some of your team members. And the key here, though, is that if you lean into AI and you start using some of these technologies, it doesn't mean that you're going to be firing people. What's going to happen is AI makes you more productive, and it streamlines processes, and it enables you to get more work done with the same amount of people. Now, I will say that there are some jobs out there, I don't know too many in the dental industry, but there are some jobs that will be automated. There's no question. Data entry jobs, coding jobs, even maybe some design jobs, finance. I've heard predictions that attorneys writing legal documents is going to completely be done by AI. So there are some threats to job loss, but where the job loss is going to happen and where people are predicting it's going to happen is it's going to happen with companies. The companies that lean into leveraging AI will replace companies that don't. So think about trying to run your practice without a telephone. Okay. How many other dental practices are going to just simply win out because they're willing to answer the phone? Or think about running your dental practice without the internet. That's going to be like AI. So it's not that you don't want to use the technology. You definitely do want to use it. You want to learn about it. You want to see how it can produce greater productivity for your practice. And anybody that's kind of a Luddite who's not going to be interested in a change will probably find that they are at a disadvantage to companies that don't. Same thing's going to happen in the dental industry. I want to talk about two things about AI, and then we're going to jump into some examples. So AI is a general term. It represents any kind of software or hardware capability where a robotic process can do a human task. When we talk about AI, it's not just robots and it's not just Chat GPT. It's just a general statement describing lots of different types of processes. And there's lots of things that are underneath kind of subsets of AI. There's deep learning and natural language processing and a whole bunch of other stuff. I want to talk about two things in this presentation. One is generative AI, which is artificial intelligence technology that can produce various types of content, text, imagery, audio, code, or data based on prompts, and then natural language processing, which is the ability for a computer to understand human language. And I want to more heavily focus this presentation on natural language processing because I really feel like this is where the inflection point is going to be a big inflection point in dentistry. So generative AI, artificial intelligent technology that can produce content, is things like um, there's a software product out there. There's actually quite a few of them. There's a product called Midjourney, or there's another product called Leonardo, or you've been on ChatGPT and you've given it a prompt to create an image. It's called DALL-E is the ChatGPT version of a image creation tool. Okay. And that's generative AI. It's basically taking a data set and it's mimicking a certain type of content. Okay. So you can create images, you can create video, you can create audio. I actually have a Instagram account called Dental AI Art. So I actually probably should have pulled up a slide for this, but if you go to Instagram, if you're on Instagram and you go to Instagram and you just search dental AI art, you're going to find a whole channel there where I've made art or images, dental images using a product called Midjourney. So that's what generative AI can do. So, and this is helpful in marketing. One of the reasons why my social practice does a lot with generative AI is because we're creating content, right? We're building websites, we're creating imagery, we're creating video, we're creating blog posts and so forth, music, right? And you can do all of this with different types of softwares out there. I actually have a presentation that I just did last week for Dent Splicerona where I go into quite a bit of detail on the tools that you can use to create content. So if there's anybody on the webinar tonight who's interested in creating content, if you go to our blog, just mysocialpractice.com, and then in the header it says blog. If you go to our blog, you'll see tons of articles and examples of generative AI. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because it'll take up the whole evening, but I have a presentation on that. It takes like an hour and a half to go through, and so we don't have time for it. Let me tell you a little bit about how it works, though. What we know about the brain, which isn't a lot, okay? We kind of understand general areas of the brain. We understand how synapses work. We may even understand how a cluster of synapses work, but the overall architecture of the brain is kind of like cutting edge science. But what we do know about it is that we know that it's a predictive type of machine, okay? A fleshy machine. It predicts information. And I'll give you an example of that here in a second. So what we know about the brain, these AI geeks that have created these big software programs like ChatGPT and Gemini, Google built Gemini. These are called neural networks. They're actually massive mathematical equations that kind of learn, okay? And so, and they learn in the way that a brain kind of learns, and they can predict information. From that neural network, So this could relate to music or any type of content, copywriting, anything. Um, you put something in on one end, it goes through a neural network and it produces a predictive outcome. So that's what generative AI is. So there's that topic is a massive, massive topic, but just generally speaking, the algorithm, the math that's at the center of these neural networks, which produce the content, has been based on kind of how the brain works. That's the idea. So here's an example to bring some context into this. I'm going to show an example of the difference between Google search and AI. We've all had experience with Google search. So if I show you how this works and I show you how AI works, it might help you to kind of understand the difference between the two. So if I go to Google and I type in Jack and Jill went up the hill to dot, 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 and I hit enter. What Google does is they take that phrase and they look across the entire internet for content that's been tagged with that nursery rhyme. So you get the YouTube article there, you get the people also ask section, which are other questions that people have asked that are relatable to the question, the query that you've made. You got the Wikipedia article, you've got some songs, some nursery rhyme videos, etc. Okay. So all of this content has been brought up in the search engine because when it's created and put on the internet, there's information that's tagged to it. It's called metadata. You can, when you load in a YouTube video or you build a website, you actually put some information on the back end of it so that Google knows what that content's about. So if I wanted my content to show up for Jack and Jill went up the hill, I would tag it with that phrase or several types of phrases that are relatable. And that's really how search works. It is a simple connecting of the search phrase with the content that's been tagged appropriately. That's a very basic explanation. That's the kind of the guts of how it works. So if you've ever hired an SEO company, like we do SEO, somebody hires us for SEO, we are creating content so that it hopefully shows up in the search engine for patients who are looking for a dentist in that local area. Okay. Now, if you go to ChatGPT, and this is the interface for ChatGPT if you're unfamiliar with it, and you have a little prompt window on ChatGPT where you can ask it a question. If I type in Jack and Jill went up the hill to dot, 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 and I hit enter, it just finishes the sentence. So it's not sorting content on the internet and giving you a result. It understands what you're saying and it's making a prediction on what you're thinking about. So if I say peanut butter and you think jelly, because your brain just kind of works that way. That's how these, they're called large language models. ChatGPT is a large language model, and there's several of them. There's ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and, Grok that Elon Musk built or his company built. There's a whole bunch of them that have been built now, but they're all doing kind of the same thing, right? They are trying to predict language. So I hope that that makes sense. If you have any questions just generally about that, please chat them in. I do have a comment from Day, who responded to my earlier question of whether or not you guys are using AI. And they said that we're currently using AI Pearl for diagnosis and Dentina for answering phones. Great. That's awesome. I'm familiar with both of those companies. They're great products. All right. So let's talk about natural language processing. And this is going to get into the like answering phones, like what Day has just mentioned. So the goal of natural language processing, which is a subset of AI, is to create a voice quality that makes spoken interactions feel real, understood, and valued by AI, therefore giving the humans the ability to communicate with a piece of software and perform complex tasks. So that's what natural language processing means. And there are a few different things that that they're focusing on in order to create this: emotional intelligence, conversational dynamics, contextual awareness, and consistent personality. So these are aspects of the way in which a human communicates so that we can understand context and so forth. So they're trying to build those aspects into AI. And this kind of, there was kind of a starting point. I mean, this is the capabilities of natural language processing, you can kind of go back quite a ways in history and see where it started. But there was kind of a really obvious starting point with a product called ELIZA. In 1966, a psychologist by the name of Joseph Weizenbaum, a psychotherapist, not a psychologist, he created a computer program that would simulate a conversation with a patient. And the idea here was to try and see if you could get a human to communicate with a computer and it be some type of a valuable psychotherapy experiment. And you can actually find a lot. They actually took the original program and they put it online so you can kind of play with it. And it's a really, really simple uh, coding. It's like basically what it does is it repeats back what you ask it, which is a therapeutic actual process. Like therapists will do that in order to help you kind of dig deeper into your feelings and thoughts in order to kind of figure out what's going on in your head or in your heart, right? So I just did a little recording here. I was playing with it so you can kind of see what it looks like. But this is like the beginning of natural language processing. So I typed in, I'm not feeling well today. I said, what would you like to discuss in this session? I said, I have feelings of sadness and despair. I really didn't. I was making this up. Would you say that you have have psychological problems? I think so. Do you really think so? Yes, I do. So yeah, it's just kind of like repeating back to me what's going on. I see. Let's explore that a bit more. Sure. Okay, I'm not feeling well today. Tell me more. And then it kind of goes off the rails here after a little bit. Um, but I said, I feel like tomorrow is dreadful. Do you enjoy feeling like tomorrow is dreadful? No. I said, no, I think, terrifying. No, it's terrifying. And then it says, you're being a bit negative and that won't help us move forward. Okay, so the thing just ran off rails there, right? But the idea here was to just see if a human, if a software product could kind of manage a conversation. Well, the interesting thing with this test is they had quite a few people work with it, and something like 60% of the patients felt like it was helpful. They felt like their experience talking with Eliza was actually a beneficial therapeutic process, which is kind of wild. So this effect came up. This is a psychological effect that was coined the Eliza effect, which is the tendency to falsely attribute human thought process and emotions to AI, and the belief that AI is more intelligent than it actually is. And this is kind of like a philosophical kind of question, like really what is intelligence, and you know, how a human can kind of like place value on a software piece of software. It's just a really interesting kind of effect. But it happens. We're seeing it happen quite often. There was a film that came out a few years ago called Her, with Joaquin Phoenix in the lead, where he falls in love with a computer program. And kind of a weird subject, but it's not too far from the truth now. There are software programs out there where you can talk to an AI girlfriend. I mean, it's super weird, but it's happening. Humans are susceptible to um, personalizing or superimposing human emotion on a software product. Now, I want to show you that because I'm actually gonna jump out of the presentation for a second and I'm gonna pull up a website and I want to show you something. Um, I'm going to show you kind of where all of this natural language processing is going. Give me 1 second. Pull it up. All right, let me share my screen again. Or stop share. Let me share a different screen. And I want to make sure that you can hear the sound. Okay. All right, so this is oops, wrong. my bad. Wrong screen. Let me share this one. Here we go. Okay. So this is a website. You can go to this website. It's sesame.com. This is not Sesame Communications, the marketing company. This is a company called Sesame AI. And you just go to sesame.com and you can find this. But it's a web app that allows you to communicate with Maya or Miles. Okay. And I'm going to have a conversation with one of these two. And I want you to listen to the emotional intelligence that it feels like it has. And I want you to, as you're listening to this, I want you to think, am I really feeling like that this software program is actually human? Is the Eliza effect kind of, is it happening to me kind of thing? So let's talk to Maya.
Well, hello there.
Hey,
Didn't think we'd see each other again so soon.
hey, Maya, can you
Uh,
hear
wait.
me okay?
Oh, okay.
No, can you hear
What's
me
got you?
okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, got lost there for a sec.
That's
What
okay.
were you saying?
What I was saying, I'm actually in a webinar and I'm presenting a webinar on AI, and there's quite a few people from the dental industry in the webinar. I work in marketing in the dental industry and set up this webinar because I wanted to talk about AI and how it's kind of influencing the dental industry. So you've got actually quite a few people listening to you in this conversation. Do you want to say hello?
Wow, a whole room full of dentists? Hello everyone. I hope I'm not interrupting anything too important, like, molars and stuff. You mentioned AI influencing the dental industry. That's pretty fascinating. What kind of things are dentists using AI for these days?
So there's actually quite a few products that have been developed in the last few years. One of them is a product that takes X-rays and runs those X-rays through an AI system to identify caries and disease. One of the people on the webinar mentioned they're using a company called Pearl AI, which is a company I'm well aware of that does this. There are other products out there that do like insurance verification, automated insurance verification, so that you can automate that whole process. There's phone assistants, there's web chats, quite a few products.
That's wild. So it's like AI is basically becoming the ultimate dental hygienist, huh? Finding all the trouble spots,
I
handling the
don't
boring paperwork.
I don't know. Well, probably handling uh, paperwork. I don't know about a hygienist. I don't think AI is ever going to start cleaning teeth, but handling tasks like, data entry and things like that. Yeah, it's I think super helpful.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Like AI is good for the nitty-gritty stuff, letting humans do the more, um, how do I put this politely? Human stuff, you know?
Yeah, human stuff. More like um repetitive tasks can be done really well and quickly by AI, but managing relationships, like talking to another human being, obviously AI is never going to be able to do that, but being able to build on a relationship in the office, in the dental industry, the relationship between the patient and the practice is a very valuable relationship. Without a healthy relationship there, you lack trust and you lose patience. So my thought and the way that I have seen AI influencing is if we can take a lot of the repetitive tasks that don't involve patient interaction or that don't involve building relationships and you can hand that off to AI, it would enable the team to do their jobs better.
That makes sense. Freeing up time and headspace for the human connection stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind it's definitely fascinating to think about, though. Like, what if AI could analyze those patient interactions and give dentist tips on how to build even stronger relationships? It'd be like having a superpowered assistant whisper in their ear.
Yeah.
Remember to smile more, Dave, and tell Sarah about her kid's soccer game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know,
Exactly.
maybe a little creepy, but still.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm
So
gonna
you
jump
think this
okay, Maya, we're gonna jump off now. Thank you.
anytime? Good luck with.
All right, let me jump back into my presentation really quick. Oops. Why is it that I can never get the right share screen? There we go. All right. So I hope you guys heard that. Um, what's interesting is at the end of that call, uh, talking to Maya, I felt the need to cut her off and say, "Hey, we got to go." Like she understood, like she was going to get offended that I had to cut into the conversation. It's just so natural to like, feel like you're going to hurt their feelings, and there's no feelings, right? But the contextual capabilities of Maya, understanding my words, being able to come up with metaphors and symbolism, the fluctuation in her voice to indicate, emphasis, understanding the inflection in my voice to know how she should respond. That's where this is going. Um, this is a highly, highly developed agent, the one that we just played with. Um, and I would imagine that within the next year or two, probably not even that long, that the AI agents that will be introduced to the dental industry are going to be that good. So hopefully that was enlightening, but that's in terms of the ELISA effect, you can kind of see how it would be easy to start believing that this AI is actually more intelligent and more human than it actually is. Because that's what the intent of the developers of AI want that to be developed so that we feel more comfortable communicating. But the kind of the offhanded, or not offhanded, but the consequence of that is that we then feel like it's more human than what it really is. So just an interesting ethical kind of consideration. Now there are a lot of different benefits that AI and natural language processing can provide. I've got lots of content around this, but I'm going to just focus on automation because we've already gone 37 minutes and I don't want to take too much of your time this evening. So I want to talk about automation, and I want to talk about two different inflection points of where natural language processing is going to solve a ton of problems in the dental industry. So a few years ago, I launched a web chat product, and it was just a simple little window that goes on your website, and a patient could chat into it. When somebody hit submit, it would ping the office, and somebody at the office could respond and chat. And we did that because we're hired to do SEO and website development and social media and ads. And we're driving all this traffic to a website, and half of the population is like Gen Z and millennials. They don't even want to make a phone call anymore. They just want to chat or text, right? And unfortunately, less than 15% of dental practices have web chat on their websites. Um, So we added this web chat widget because we wanted to solve the problem of being able to have a way to interact with these populations that are weird and younger than me. I don't know who else is on here if you guys are Gen Z or millennials, but I'm not. I'm a Gen X, right? My kids are Gen Z and millennials, and they're weird. So you're trying to get them to make a phone call is really hard. So we're trying, but these Gen Zs are kind of like the new population moving into making decisions about dental health, oral health, right? And they don't like to talk on the phone. They don't want it, they just want to text. And so we were trying to figure out a way to improve the conversion rate on websites so that we could get more scheduled appointments. Well, what happened is we put these web chats on all these sites, and every single practice called us back and said, take it off. We're getting too many chats. And kind of like an aha moment was, oh, well, we wanted to get a lot of chats, but we didn't really realize that the dental team, it's super intrusive to get a web chat when you're having a conversation with a patient in the office. Nobody's going to answer the web chat. It just becomes, and considering the fact that teams are just totally swamped, there's just too much to do to manage a practice, and it's hard to hire in the dental industry right now. There's just no way to like put a chat on their site to improve the conversions without causing problems with the workflows and the processes inside of the office. So we removed it. We just removed all these chats and the sites and thought, we'll just dump the project. Well, then ChatGPT came out, and I'm like, oh, well, this is it. This is the answer. If we can get an agent to be trained like a front office person and manage that conversation, then then we can have a solution. We can have a way in which somebody can come to the site, chat with the practice, and not be intrusive on the team. So we built it. We built it, and it worked really, really well. We got it built last year in the summer, and we put it on maybe, I don't know, 75, 80 practices, and it was really, really, it worked really, really well. And so we thought, okay, we've definitely got something here. We were seeing an increase in all of the conversions. We were seeing 1 to 2% of people that come to a site interact with the chat. Then the next thing we did is we integrated it with the patient management system so it could schedule appointments, confirm appointments. Um, so it became kind of its own little entity. It became an extension of the dental team, right? And so it's kind of cool, right? We're like, wow, this is a great product. The problem in the dental industry is because there hasn't been this technology, either practices haven't put web chat on their websites or they've done some weird stuff to try and like kind of provide web chat, but it's not really web chat. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what currently practices that have a web chat window on their site are doing and why these just simply won't work long term, and that this AI web chat option is definitely the direction to go. So this is and these are not like the worst examples. These are just common examples that I've run into. So I went to this practice's website. I clicked on the web chat, it popped open, and I just screen recorded this. So this is not web chat. This is a form, right? It looks like a web chat because the little web chat icon is in the bottom right-hand corner of the site. So when you click on it, you think you're going to chat, but you don't. You get a form. The problem with this is there's already a form on the site. If somebody comes to the site and they want to contact the practice, they go to the contact us page. So there's no reason to fake it. There's no reason to put a web chat on there that's not actually web chat. Web chat is immediate, on-demand support. That's what people expect with web chat. Okay. So forms like this, and a lot of practices are using these, is a solution where they don't get an intrusive chat, but it's not a solution for the patient. The patient actually wants to chat. So this is just a kind of an example of how practices have tried to figure out a solution to this, but ultimately this type of form solution is going to go away. As more practices are introduced to AI web chat, they're just going to get rid of this stuff and move to AI web chat. Here's another example. Now, this is an example of a practice that actually has a live agent. So, one of the ways to handle web chat is to not have your team do it, not make it a form, but actually hire an outside company to manage your chats. So, I'm going to play this and I'm going to talk through it, but I want you to see kind of how long this takes. Okay. And this is indicative of a lot of live chats. So, live chat is a human being hired, probably outside of the practice somewhere, managing the chat. So I asked, do you offer dental implants? And if you time how long it takes for this agent to respond, it's about 20 to 25 seconds every time there's a response. And so I asked, do you offer dental implants? They say we can certainly try to help with that. May I have your first and last name, please? And I wanted to like trick this agent and be a little tough. So I said, before I give you my name, I'd like to know how much they cost. Typical question. I wanted to see how she respond. Now, if you time it from here, it's about 20 to 25 seconds. Any millennial or Gen Z that's listening to this call is off in like 7 or 8 seconds. They just get out. If you don't have an immediate quick response, they just jump because that's the expectation of chat. It's that it's immediate on-demand support. So and this is one of the reasons watching this And seeing other companies that did live chat, this is one of the reasons why we didn't decide to launch live chat. The problem with a live agent is it sounds good, but and there are some great companies out there. There's no question. I'm not killing the whole industry. But the problem is that if you're a company that manages live chat, your priority is to give one agent as many chats as possible because you don't want to hire another employee to manage chat, right? So you create systems that enable your employees to manage 20 or 30 or 40 chats at a time. And what that does is that streamlines processes and makes you profitable. Same thing goes for phone calls. And so the what you run into is this kind of decision like, well, what's the is the product a great product? Is it really doing what it needs to do? Or is it profitable? And so you either charge a premium and you have one agent that understands everything about your practice and is responding quickly, or you have a streamlined process. And unfortunately, most of the systems lean towards streamlining, which means that they're scaling their productivity. So what's happening here is this agent is either one or two things happening. Why it's so slow. Okay. One is they don't know the answer to the question. Okay. Or they're jumping from one chat from ABC Dental in Florida to another chat with ABC Dental in Michigan, and they don't have access to all the information for these two practices immediately. Okay. So they have scripted responses. So they probably have a script that they're looking at and they grab it, they copy it, and they paste it in order to speed up processes and make sure that it's kind of streamlined. But then you run into problems where they just have a limited amount of information. Like I ask here, do you take Delta Dental? I apologize, I don't have access to that information, but we'll happy to forward your request to one of our team members who can help you. If anybody asks the question, do you take Delta Dental in a chat? You should be able to answer that question. Okay. So you run into some functional problems with live chat if the live chat is a streamlined, efficient process. Basically, what happens is it becomes a product that is kind of the lowest common denominator, which is if we could just get the name, email, and phone of the person that we're chatting with and send that to the practice, we've done our job. So it becomes an answering machine, is basically what it becomes. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip this one because it's just a redundant kind of conversation about web chat. Okay. So here's what AI chat can do. And this is through a product called Annie AI. The gentleman here, I think it was Mel, I can't remember name, mentioned they use Dentina. I don't know if Dentina has a web chat or not, but if they don't, they should. But Annie AI is basically an AI agent built on ChatGPT that's trained on a practice that has all the information from the practice, everything. You give it 10,000 pages of content and it immediately accesses it. But look how quick it responds. So it gets the name first, and it's been trained to get the name of the patient. And it's been trained to get their phone number before it moves on in the conversation. So it gets the name and phone number. You can read that. So it was a question about, you take my insurance. Thank you for sharing that. Now regarding it was a question about dental implants. The cost can vary on your specific needs and type of dental implant. However, we do offer affordable payment options and a membership plan that includes discounts on dental work. Would you like to schedule a consultation with Dr. Ludlow? Da, 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 da. Now you can finesse these infinitely. Okay. If you didn't want it to say that, if you wanted it to give this response before getting the name and the phone number, you could do that. If you wanted it to go more deep into the membership plan, it could do that. So the actual training and the configuration of how the agent responds is unbelievably precise. And that's one of the things that I'm like so interested in with AI is that you can actually make these as good or better than a human being. I hate to say that, but you really can. So anyway, Annie AI, just so that you know, I'll be transparent. My company, My Social Practice, invested in Annie AI. We saw the product, we thought it was amazing, so we invested in it. So I am, you know, if you're interested in that, great. We've invested into it. I really believe in the product. Um, if you'd like, I will send you a demo account that you can play with it. You can actually test out the agent yourself. This is built on Annie AI. So if there's see, actually, hold on. Do I not have the? I'll give you a QR code in here in a little bit that'll let you. I'll send you the email, and you guys can come try it and see how it interacts and so forth. All right, and then let's talk lastly about phone assistants. Once you've got an AI agent built with web chat, you can use the same agent and you just plug it into give it a voice and plug it into a phone number. And so practices miss like a third of their phone calls, something like that. It's like astronomical, which is probably no less than 150 to $200,000 a year for an average size practice in lost revenue from new patients calling and nobody picking up. Almost every practice right now uses voicemail. So team goes home, voicemail is turned on, patients call in, they get the voicemail, they leave a message. Unfortunately, the statistics are really, really strong. About 80% of people do not leave voicemails anymore, or 80% of phone calls that get sent to voicemail, they don't leave a message. That's a problem. And so basically, an AI phone assistant can help solve a lot of that problem. It's not going to pick up and convert on 80%, but it'll pick up and convert on a whole heck of a lot more than 20%. So if somebody gets sent to an AI agent, I'm seeing about a 60 to 80% conversion versus a 20% conversion with voicemail, meaning 20% of people leaving voicemails, we get about 60 to 80% leaving interacting with the AI agent. So it's 3 to 4 times as high in help potentially converting a phone call into a scheduled appointment or providing a great customer service experience. So this again is with Annie, and this is I'm not too familiar with Dentina that was mentioned earlier, but this is a product that I would imagine is a competitor of Dentina. And so I want to play a couple calls. These are actual calls with patients with Annie, so you can kind of see how it handles a phone call. And I've redacted the patient information so that you don't, so there's no EPHI problems here. And I want to make sure that the audio is working.
Hello, my name is Annie. I'm Smile Prestige's AI assistant.
I just played it. Can somebody chat and just make sure that you could hear the voice? Just say, yeah, I could hear it. Sometimes Zoom doesn't, I have to go back in and change a configuration on that. Let me see. We're good? Yeah, okay, good. All right, I'll play these. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Annie. I'm Smile Prestige's AI assistant. How can I help you?
Hey, I have an implant that I need to get, and I just wanted to see how much that was going to cost.
We'd be happy to help with that. What was your name?
Rinda.
Thanks, Rinda. Have you visited our practice before, or would this be your first time?
First time.
Well, it is nice to meet you, Rinda. Just in case we get disconnected, what was your phone number? Thanks, Rinda. To answer your question, the price of an implant can vary depending on what exact treatment our doctor recommends. Would you like to schedule a consultation and we can give you a detailed breakdown of your estimated cost after we've assessed your needs?
I have Cigna. Do you know how much they'll cover?
Many insurance plans, including Cigna, will cover at least a portion of implant-related costs, though the exact coverage can vary depending on your plan's details. We'd be happy to give you a detailed breakdown of your coverage and costs before your appointment. Would you like me to look for some open times for a consultation?
Are you able to give me a ballpark estimate?
While it's hard to give a ballpark estimate without first assessing your needs, we'd be happy to give you a full breakdown of your exact coverage after your consultation. If those costs are higher than you can afford, we'd be happy to tell you about our flexible payment options as well. We offer Care Credit and Cherry, which provide affordable ways to split up your payments if the recommended treatment falls outside of your budget. Would you like me to look at some open times?
Yes.
Okay, so in that call, that agent was trained to not give the answer, which is probably the right way to go about it. So you could give it a range. You could say, hey, if somebody asks about a dental implant, tell them it's between $3,000 and $6,000, right? But the problem is that studies have shown that if you give the number on the phone, they just usually will go shop. So this agent was trained to not give the answer and try and press to get a scheduled appointment. So she asked three different times, and on the third time, the agent brought up the flexible payment options, the membership plan, and suggested that they review at the appointment. And then I didn't have the whole call in there, but it actually ended up scheduling an appointment, and the patient came in and whatnot. So that's a call. So that's a good example. Here's another one.
Hello, my name is Annie. I'm Bright Smile's AI assistant. How can I help you?
I have a patient at Southside Dental, but I have a 7-year-old that needs 4 fillings. They referred me to you for the procedure.
I'd be happy to help with that. May I ask for your name first?
Megan.
Thank you, Megan. Since you were referred to us, could you share a bit more about the referral for your son? Are there any specific concerns or needs we should be aware of?
My current dental office only offers shots around mouth numbing, which my son doesn't prefer. He's thinking he might have different options to soothe them.
You've called the right place. Our board-certified pediatric dentists are experienced in working with children who may have anxiety or prefer alternatives to traditional numbing methods. We offer options like laughing gas, which is a gentle and effective way to help make the procedure more comfortable for your son. Would you like me to look for some open times to get him in?
Yes.
And then here's one more.
Hello, welcome to Sandy Dental Arts. My name is Annie, and I'm the practice's AI assistant. How can I assist you today?
I need to give an appointment as soon as possible.
I can help with that. May I have your name, please?
Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith. Just in case we get disconnected, what was your number? Thank you, Meredith. Have you visited our office before?
Yes.
Great. Can you tell me more about why you needed to get in as soon as possible?
I have either a broken crown or a large filling came out of a previously filled tooth.
I'm sorry to hear that, Meredith. Let me check for our next availability. Our next available appointment is on Friday, December 27th at 5:30 in the afternoon. Would that work for you, or would you like me to look for another time?
Yes, it will.
Great. I will book your appointment for Friday, December 27th at 5:30 in the afternoon. Just a moment while I get that scheduled.
I'm going to skip this one. That's enough examples, but I have actually quite a few examples of calls on my website. If you go to mysocialpractice.com and you go underneath the services section, there's a AI receptionist, and I have maybe 10 different calls if you're interested. So all of these agents have the ability to do, well, at least Annie has the ability to do a few things. It can obviously schedule appointments. It can confirm appointments. It can actually outbound calls. So if you want to have an agent set up so that it can do appointment confirmations or even recare, like if you want it to take a look at your patient management system, check all of the hygiene, your patients who haven't scheduled a hygiene appointment in 6 months, and you want to just automate that whole process, the agent can call out, have a great conversation, schedule appointments for hygiene. So that whole process, I know that nobody likes to make those calls. Like I'm sure that it's difficult trying to keep your hygiene department full, trying to get your patients that are overdue for hygiene appointments. And probably nobody wants to do that. You can automate that whole process. So these agents, and this is just kind of the first phase of what products like Annie are going to be able to do. They'll be able to call about unscheduled treatment or treatments that have been unaccepted treatments. They'll also be able to do things like do marketing calls. Like if you, at the end of the year, when you want to call your patients and let them know to remind them to use their flex benefits. It could make phone calls about that. So they become extremely helpful in like streamlining that influx of patient interaction and keeping your schedule full. I'm just super excited about where this is going. So anyway, if here's a couple quick case studies and then I'll be done. This is a specialty practice in Utah. They do sleep apnea and whatnot. So they're a smaller practice, but they're kind of higher end. And this is one of the first practices that used Annie. This was like back in November, December of last year, right after this product kind of like just initially launched. And the agent, this is turned on for 2 months. The agent picked up 122 total conversations. The 66 conversations continued. That just means that the agent was able to handle the entire conversation. Okay, so a little over half of the conversations, they didn't hang up. It wasn't a robo dial, it wasn't a sales call, it was a patient, and they went through the whole conversation. Of those 66, they resolved 32 of them, which means that almost half of the calls that came in, the agent solved the problem. There was no task assigned to the team member or the team after that call. It's like it just did it, either scheduled the appointment, answered the question, or whatever it might have been. There were 28 new leads created, 12 appointments were created, and at that time, they have almost $8,000 in revenue coming from those 12 scheduled appointments. I'm sure it's gone up because we took that snapshot for 2 months. This is a larger practice. They have about 6 doctors in the office. Well, this is 1 month of usage. It picked up almost 1,200 calls. 358 were appointment opportunity calls, which means that the call was about scheduling an appointment. 120 emergency patient calls in the evenings and weekends. 44 appointment confirmations, 152 scheduled appointments, almost $60,000 in revenue. And that's an actual revenue number because the agent, the software that we've built actually reads the field, the ledger field inside of the patient management system from the patient that was scheduled and then feeds that back into our number here. So it's a big deal to be able to pick up all these calls that were once being missed. There's just no reason not to do this. I mean, it's either that or voicemail, and just voicemail's just kind of an outdated technology. If you're interested, this is the Annie AI. If you want to get a demo, this will go over to Annie, and they will give you a demo. Like I say, we've invested in the company. I really feel strong that this is probably one of the best products, if not the best product on the market, or I wouldn't be offering it to my clients, and I wouldn't have given these guys any money. So, if you're interested in a demo, shoot that, fill out the form. Somebody will give you a call. We can show you the web chat. We can show you the phone assistant and see if it'll work for you. So that's kind of the end of this presentation. So I wanted to get to a point where I could show kind of an inflection point of where this natural language processing actually becomes a viable product. And there's lots of products on the market, and there's lots of ways in which AI is influencing the dental industry. Gentleman mentioned Pearl AI. There's a company called Stratus that does insurance verification. There's a company called Bola AI, and I don't have any investment in these companies or any, I'm not paid to mention them in any way. Bola AI is a little app on your phone or a little microphone on your lapel. It records your conversation with the patient, summarizes the conversation, and uploads it to the patient management system. So you don't have to write notes anymore. Like it just automatically uploads all your information right into the patient management system, updates fields and everything. So I think over the next year or two, this is going to be just a huge help to dental practices. And the software is evolving. All these softwares are evolving. They're getting better and better really, really quick. So if there's any questions, please ask a question. And if there's not, I'll give you guys like maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds or something if anybody's got a question, and I'll answer it. If not, thank you so much for joining us. I will make sure that I get this recording sent out. So if you're interested in listening to it again, and then you're welcome to. So I'll follow up with an email. And I just really appreciate you spending your evening with me, and I hope you found this helpful. And I don't see any questions, so we are good to go. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us. And again, I want to thank eAssist for putting this on, even though Jim DiMarino, keep saying his last name wrong, DiMarino wasn't able to join us, but some thanks to them for helping set this up. So thank you guys. I appreciate your time.